So I'm a contract software engineer in London. I picked up Orchard in 2009 when my boss ran into the room and declared we were using .NET Nuke. So from there we decided to stop him from doing that, and we picked up the code drop in 2009 off Codeplex. So the agenda for this talk really is a background to why I built the forum module. A structure of that module, a demo, so everyone likes demos, the extensibility points in the forum module, a demo of those extensibility points, what's next, and a little bit of Q&A, of course. So, this is taken from Wikipedia. Basically, Internet Forum is just a message board where two people can have a conversation, or n+1. So, I don't know if anyone's used the PHP-BB forums, but this is essentially what it looks like. You've got tables, and a few more tables in there. You can literally see that everything, including the username and password, is a table. And surely we can do better. So, a little bit of the module background. It's the #1 requested feature on user voice, which is pretty cool. It's 606 votes compared to mono, which is #2. Yay. So it was last released in 2011. What happened was that I did some work on it and released it, and then I got pulled into other directions, and have recently picked it back up and have been actively working on it. But I had a good review, which was pretty cool, and I'll probably do a release when 1.7 is coming out, as it integrates quite well with taxonomies. So Sebastian told me to put this in there, so I did. As you can see, #1. So, feature creep. When I picked up the module, I thought, right, I looked at some of the older modules, and they had a lot of stuff in. I thought, wow, a forum must have everything that's in there. It must have moderation, it must have media, it must have all these things that when you go onto PHP-B, for example, PHP-B does. But that's not really what Orchard's about. So I went and decided to really go back to some of the principles that I had when I started writing modules in Orchard. So one of them was no extra features in that core module. It's one of the things that Orchard itself, the principles behind that is that you abstract everything out into separate modules, and they are idempotent. So you can chop and change out. That's the whole point of the abstraction. Also, familiarity within that module. One of the things that I've seen while looking at Orchard modules that a lot of new people have done is they've picked up an MVC site and they've modeled it based on their experience with MVC and not the experience with Orchard. You want to pick up an Orchard module and you want to say, you know where view models are, you know where models are, you know where all the extra little parts are. The modules are the same, just as if you were picking up a core module. So you want similar code base. So I started designing a forum, and I don't know if anyone has designed a forum before, but they are bloody difficult. You know, you've got so many things to model. At first I thought I'd pick it up and it's going to be like a comments section, and didn't really turn out to be that. How do you create a message? How do you reply to that message? Do you just flow through? How do you see a list of those messages? Can those messages be grouped? What does a grouping look like? So I went back to I went back to the content types, and I thought, well, what are the content types that are really required based on the original questions, the top 5 questions that I had. And they were that a message, which is, I'm just going to jump back and forth here. When you create a message, what you're actually doing is you're creating a post. A user writes a user post. So in that instance, we've covered that one off. And that also covers what a reply is. But then you've got a grouping, and you want to group those messages together. So when you're grouping those messages together, that's what is termed or coined a thread, a conversation-like pattern. And thirdly, you want to group those threads together. So I want to keep grouping all the way down, and when you group all those threads together, you end up with a forum. Okay, cool. So I'm going to do a quick demo of the core forum features, unless I get another blue screen. So, okay, so I've installed the forum module. So let me just show you guys that. Yep. Okay. So module called forums, which is dependent on taxonomies. Now, has anyone tried to download the forum module in the past? Okay, and I'm assuming quite a few of you guys have had issues. Yeah. Okay, so some of the issues were that the taxonomies module that was on the gallery was a little bit out of date. So this is now based on the 1.7, so you should have a lot more, well, it should be straightforward. So taxonomies. So let's create a forum. Okay, so over here, little forum. So let's just call this sandbox. So assign a category to it. Cool. So tags, this is actually leveraging taxonomy. So in 1.7, you'll see a autocomplete feature for taxonomies, which you can enable, and there's a few other things around that, which is pretty cool. Have I got everything? Yeah. Cool. So I've just created a forum content item. So let's go create a thread. So there's a couple parts behind how you do a forum. So you don't really want your users creating forums on the front end. It's more of an admin task than a user front-facing task. But creating a thread isn't so much an admin task as it is a user task. So what I decided to do was make it so that when you create a thread, you always create it through the user UI. So if I jump into that, you'll see that it's just a normal theme machine screen and just default stuff. So let's create a thread. My new thread. Okay. Save that. Okay, so all I'm doing is I'm pumping out shapes. I haven't done any theming on this at all. There's no CSS being loaded, custom to what I need. So you've got a couple things here. You've got delete, you've got reply to this thread, reply, and also reply with quote. Those two will reply to the content item that you've clicked on. Reply to this thread will reply to its parent item, and delete will delete the entire thing. They're all locked down by permissions, so you can go into the admin UI and lock those down, and they're show and hide based on whatever. So if I do a quick reply, cool, you'll see that it has gone there. There's an issue with quick reply, but let's not worry about that right now. Cool. So if I then say I want to reply with quote, so quoting this person, I can do that as well. And what you've got is you've got it in block text and with hi. Cool. So that's pretty much a default forum. And you can see the thread there. So I now want to make it so that I've got a sticky thread. I want to make an announcement. So let's do this again. So this is a sticky thread. So you've got the is sticky. This is also locked down by permissions. So you can add that in. So let's just do question again. Not that it is. This at the top. Cool. So my thread's been created, and this is a sticky thread. So if I create another thread that's not sticky, that should stay at the top. This is a sticky thread. So that stayed at the top, which is good. Cool. So let me just show you some code. So some of the things that, oh, did you want me to change my font? Oh dear. I forgot what fonts and colors are like in Visual Studio. What was it, 16? And you also want me to turn it to light? That's right, yep. Okay. Ugh. Cool. Yeah, I know. So, how did I model a forum, a thread, and a post in Orchard? So there's one thing that you need to do. You need to create a hierarchical structure, and how do you do that? Well, luckily there's a thing on iCommon part, which is called a container. I don't know if you guys have used this before. And all I'm doing when I create parent-child relationships is I use this container. So if I create a forum, for example, let me just hide that. Oh. Oh. So I just do it this way. It's probably when I change the theme. That's all right. Whoa. How do I change the white background? Oh. Wow. I've never done that before. Okay. So, where was I? So when I create a forum, a forum's created in the admin section. So if I'm just going to go like that because I can barely see it on my screen. So we've got the default. So this code will be pretty familiar if you've ever looked at the blogs module. I create a draft of the forum content item, which is nude up here. Let me just scroll across. And I then update the editor, which you guys must have used before, from the screen, and then I publish that forum. And then I want to create a thread. So threads are all done through the user UI. So this is a themed controller. So what I do is, here it is. Okay. So I'm posting a thread and a post back. So if I go create a thread, what you're actually looking at here is you create two content items. You create a thread and a post at the same time. The thread is the permalink, the title, and the homepage and stickies, I believe. And what's important about the separation on this screen is that you don't know that it's there unless you go and view the HTML markup, but it's there. So it's then posted back, and you create both a thread and a post. Earlier, Sibka mentioned about prefixing. That's very important in this instance because let's say a thread and a post both have a name field on that object. Well, if it came back, you would be posting name back twice, so you wouldn't know which one to update. So they're all prefixed with thread part and post part, which is very important. I then assign, so once I create the thread and I create the post, I then assign the thread to the thread part on the post, which is, you may have guessed it, just a container. Just like you've got blogs and blog posts, you take the next level down and you've got something else. You've got your forum, thread, and a post. So that's how I've created a parent-child relationship. So if I just jump back. So if I just carry on. Okay, so I've got a quick site to demo. Sorry about that one, Sibka, but I didn't realize it was in there. So what I've been doing over the last month is I've been creating this demo Orchard project forum site. And what you've got on here is you've got a few things. And I'm going to demo how I've implemented some of this in a second. So this is just a demo site using a theme that I've put together. And what it's got on here is some funky stuff. If I just jump back to here, I've actually got some of these things in the wrong order. So what we've got is we've got inline editing, which is an extension of forums. Essentially, as I said earlier, I wanted to keep stuff out of the core forum module, but I wanted to extend what forums does. So creating all these modules, like inline editing, was one of the key aspects of editing a post. I didn't want to make a user go to another page when editing a post. I wanted to keep the context there. So extending it, I mean, it's all shapes, so you just do what you want. So if I show you inline editing quickly just in here. So if I go onto here, I can then say, with Markdown in there, lovely jubbly, I can then start editing and save that back, which is pretty cool. How's that achieved? So anyone got any questions about the forum module up to this point before I move on? Okay, cool. So the forum module by itself is nothing more than just a parent-child system. Once you start pushing things like inline editing in there, you get a much richer thing. So if I go to my theme and show you, so when you enable inline editing, what that gives you is that gives you the ability to go and create editor parts, editor templates, sorry. Okay, cool. And those editor templates are all prefixed with .inlineEdit, thus allowing you to basically render over the top of the default shape name with a custom part. So if I just show you what one of those looks like, so when I push out the shape, parts, threads, post body, I have a filter that says, okay, look for .inlineEdit. And if that shape exists, I then push a wrapper around that part, around that shape. And from there, it's inline editable. You obviously need to do a little bit of extra legwork in order to say what you want it to do. I mean, I've just said whether it's HTML or Markdown, but the concepts are the same. So let me just go on to what's next. Sorry, I'm just rushing through this. So what's next from the forums module? Well, I've got a bunch of bugs to fix, as normal. I don't really want to change the forums module per se, but what I am working on is a few Google Wave features, like operational transformation, which I found pretty interesting, and hopefully some of the more inline editable stuff to make it easier for the end users. So that's pretty much me done. Q&A. Sibka.
Hey Nick.
Hey.
So your forum module, does it support the ability to configure which, what the type of post would be? So for example, I could create 2 forums, or create a new forum type maybe, so I can configure a, for example, if I wanted to create user voice, which supports upvoting, I would need a custom type for that. But then I want a regular forum, which doesn't support that feature.
Okay, so are you saying that you would like to, so if you wanted to create a different forum type, you would still want the threads attached to that?
And maybe even a different type of post. So I would attach a post part, but it would be a different type.
You can't do, I don't think you can at the moment change out the post, but you can change out the forum. I've done that for my Wave module, which is on GitHub. I think it's just called ngm.wave, and you can see an implementation within the migrations.
I'll have a look, thanks.
Yep.
Hi,
Hey.
you're logged in as admin, and if you log out, how do you set up users and give access to the forum?
Good question. Okay, so to give users access to the forum, okay, so let's say you're logged in, let's start with an admin, yeah? So everything is done by permissions. So you want to give users access to the forum. So it's very straightforward. You first need to, you either want the users to, you've got 2 ways in. You either set up the users yourself, or you allow users to create their own accounts. So that's all default through these screens here. So users can create accounts on the site. So if I check this and then go, you also need to do, there's a little bit of a tweak to the roles in order for them to be able to see the forms. So authenticated users, unless I've already fixed it, let's have a look. Nope, it's all there, so it's good. So if I go and log out.
What would you have had to tweak?
No, I didn't have to tweak anything. Register. That's fine. Cool. So I now have access to a forum. There you go. And I'm logged in as test user, I believe. There you go. Yeah? Cool. On this site, however, this uses my open authentication module, which is also on the gallery. So you can log in with Google, or if I add it on there, Facebook and Twitter. Yeah, it's all there.
Yeah, I've got a question about. I saw one of the attributes you've put on one of your controller, the validation input. You actually disabled it.
Yes.
Just wondering if it's if there is any security implication in doing that.
That's a very good point. No, that's actually a very good point. It is open to cross-site scripting when you post back, just like if you post back through the admin screens. However, there is a module out there called X-site scripting that's on GitHub, and that's also on the slide deck. And to implement that, so one of the things I didn't want to do is I didn't want to stop users putting content into the system, but I want to make it so that anything that's displayed is screened. So if I show you, just need to remember where it is. So I've included this little utility, and all you need to do in order to use it is you just do util.sanitize.html, and you pass in a string, and that will sanitize that markup and remove any vulnerabilities you have. Yep.
Other questions?
That will actually also use, that uses Microsoft's cross-site scripting library under the hood, if you wondered what the implementation was.
Anyone else? Last question? Okay, great. Thank you very much, Nick.
Cool.